Healthcare technology life cycle will be the topic of this video. The life cycle of a medical device or system will start with a request from medical department and will end with the disposal of this device or system. The life cycle of healthcare technology can be separated into two main parts. The first part will be the planning part, and the second part will be the management part. The planning part can be separated into four phases: assessment, budgeting, acquisition, and replacement. The management part also can be separated into four parts or phases: education, compliance, maintenance, and safety. In both parts, the planning and management should be supported with data collection and analysis for each phase. In the planning part, we should have a medical equipment replacement plan. This plan should be made for 3 to 5 years and should be updated annually based on a request from a department or based on the need to replace an old equipment or due to a safety reason in case of receiving a hazard recall or alert. So this plan should be periodically updated based, as we said before, on the request or on a request or on a due to a safety reason. We'll see some photos which show new medical equipment trends which lead to have a request from a medical department. The first trend is an integrated operating room. Here also another new trend, a new medical equipment trend, the use of robotic assisted surgery. Another medical equipment trend is the use of a 3D endoscopy technology in the surgical suite. Here also a new trend in the radiology department. This trend is the use of a 3D tomosynthesis mammography. Another new trend in the radiology department is the use of the spectral CT scanners, which is a replacement for the old conventional scanners. Another important trend is fully automated laboratories. These laboratories becomes fully automated. Here also another example for a new medical equipment trend, especially these days, which is the use of a robot for performing disinfection tasks. So we'll start now with a definition for the healthcare technology. The spectrum of the healthcare technology include different areas: the pharmaceuticals, devices, procedures, and organizational systems used in the healthcare industry. According to the WHO, the healthcare technology is the application of organized knowledge and skills in the form of devices, medicines, vaccines, procedures, and systems developed to solve a health problem and improve the quality of life. So the spectrum of the health care technology is wide, and we should only focus here in the medical equipment or devices or systems. In this video, I will only focus in the planning part, and later on I will talk about the management part. As we said, the life cycle of a healthcare technology, particularly, as we said, we will only focus on the medical equipment. This life cycle can be separated from the request till the disposal of this device or system into two main parts: the planning part and the management part. In the planning part, we have four phases: assessment, budgeting, acquisition, replacement. In the management part, also we have four phases: education, compliance, maintenance, and safety. So now I will, as I said before, I will focus only in the planning part in this video. So we'll start with a request. The request will be made by physicians and other healthcare leaders. So we receive an inputs or requests from these from different departments. I will give a practical example to demonstrate what is a request and how we should integrate these requests from different departments with the medical equipment replacement plan. So we will have this practical example. We have received requests from laboratory, from radiology, ICU, and surgical suite. So we have many requests received, and we should make priorities based on our budget. So we'll start with this request. From the laboratory department, that we have a request for the replacement for clinical chemistry analyzer, for hematology analyzer, and immunoassay analyzer. As for the radiology department, we received a request for the replacement of a CT scanner system, the RF system, which is an acronym for digital radiographic fluoroscopic system, and also we need to replace digital radiographic system, or also known as DR system. In addition to the equipment replacement, we need to install a new 1.5 Tesla MRI machine. Another request have been received from the intensive care unit to replace the following equipment: 8 patient monitors with a central station, and also 8 adult ventilators. We have also received a request from the surgical suite, the OR operating rooms, to replace 3 operating tables, 3 anesthesia machines, and 3 electrical surgical units. In this, we see the bill of quantities. For the equipments either need to be replaced or to be installed, so a new equipment. The total BOQ from the laboratory will be 3 medical devices or systems. From the radiology department will be also 3. From the ICU department will be 17, and from the surgical suite will be 32. So as we said, we will need to replace a hematology analyzer, a chemistry analyzer, and immunoassay analyzer. I want to mention a point here concerning the replacement of medical equipment. Usually these medical devices or systems have a lot of consumables, so we can have an alternative, either to purchase this equipment as a brand new or refurbished one, or we can make a leasing or rental agreement with the vendor or supplier. In the radiology department, as we said, we need to replace our old CT with a new CT scanner. We need to install a new MRI machine. Also, we need to replace the DR system and the DRF system. As for the surgical suite, we need to replace 3 operating tables, 3 electrical surgical units, and the 3 anesthesia machine. First of all, when we take the decision to the replacement, the first step, which we will discuss later, is the assessment of needs. For example, I will give an example for the anesthesia machine. What type of anesthesia machine we are looking for? Do we need for example, the multi-gas module to be built in, or can be standalone? Also, another point should be what type of ventilator should be used with this anesthesia machine. For example, we have different types. We have the Below type, which is used by GE. We have the piston type, which is used by Draeger. We have also the volume reflector, which is used by Mackay. We have the balloon type instead of the bellows, which is used by Medic. So we have different type of technologies. We have different options. For example, if we want the multi-gas module to be built in or not, what are the number of vaporizers need to be installed with this anesthesia machine. So we have many points we should discuss with the different departments prior to start the writing the specification and seeking the vendors to have an offer from them. Also, the same situation for the radiology department. For example, you should, in case of the MRI, what type of MRI you are looking for. For example, if it's 18 channel, 16 channel, it's come with out noise. We have a new technology which is brain silent. In case of the medical laboratory machines, we should ask what is the load, what is the load for each machine, which is very important in case of making our discussion. What type of technology being used, if for the hematology analyzer, for the chemistry analyzer or immunoassay. In immunoassay, we have different type of technology, like the one used by Roche, which is called the CL technology. We have the CL technology, which is used by Abou, and so on. The hematology analyzer, we should ask also what the number of differential we have, like for example 5 differential, 7 differential, 9 differential. We should ask if we need a slide strainer with this machine, automated one. We should ask for the hematology analyzer what the number of tests we need to perform in this machine and what type of technology, if it's an open system or closed system, and so on. So the assessment of need is very important. Similarly, for example, if we want to ask about a patient monitor, what type of malaria, the first need we should look for is the size of screen, because in each department we should have a patient monitor with different size. For example, in the ICU room, we need a screen which is larger than the use in another application. In the operating room, also the patient monitor, which is usually used with the anesthesia machine, should have the largest screen, because we have many parameters. For example, we have the need to see or display the oxygen, the CO2, the multi-gases, the anesthetic gases, and so on. So the first point we should ask, what is the appropriate size for this screen? Another point we should also discuss here, what is the type of technology for the pulse oximetry. I prefer here to use the technology which is developed by Massimo. Another point also we should discuss here during the assessment of the needs, what type of consumables we need, what is the number of consumables we should also include it in our specification. Similarly, the ventilator, and so on. So we'll start now with the first part in the planning, which is the assessment of needs. As we discussed before, we should discuss what type of needs we are looking after. Also, sometimes, as we said, safety is an important part. For example, as we said, one of the reasons behind a request is the safety. I will give an example. In our country here in Lebanon, we have the use of the formaldehyde gas, which is used as a cold sterilization. This type of technology has been prohibited by the Ministry of the Health. So we should seek for a new technology such as the A2O or the plasma. And we should make a comparison which is best for our hospital or for our application. Also, another point should be assessed the vendors. Also, we have different brands and manufacturers. Also, an important point when we seeking or look for vendors is the service provided by this vendor, in addition to the type of a brand which will be supplied by this vendor. Another point is the cost, and we will see and we will discuss this point. As we said before, sometimes we have a budget limitation, so we should make priorities, and we should. It's essential to look for alternatives. For example, if I need to now buy a brand new equipment or a refurbished one, or seek a leasing or a rental agreement, and so on. Finally, the alignment with the healthcare strategic plan. So the assessment of needs is very important. The assessment, it will take some time, but it's essential and important phase in our planning procedure. The second part, after the assessment phase has been completed, we should now make priorities based on the limitation in our budget. So we should seek different alternatives, like purchasing or procurement of a brand new equipment, or refurbished one in case we have some limitation and we need urgently to replace or install a new medical device. Also, the leasing or renting will be an option, which we are usually use in case of the budget limitation. So, as for our practical example, we should make a detailed estimated project cost. This is very important because based on this, we will make what is the best choice to take in case of, for example, the procurement decision or the option of leasing or rental or even loan. For example, as we can see, the budget needed for the replacement of the laboratory equipment or analyzers will be around $250,000, whereas for the radiology, which will be very expensive by comparison to the other departments, the most expensive item will be the procurement of a new 1.5 Tesla MRI system. As for the intensive care unit, the budget also will be close to the one needed for the laboratory department. As for the surgical suite, will be the less expensive among these budgets. It will be around $150,000. So the total, this is an estimated one, which means it's not a real cost, but an estimated one. So why I should make an estimation for the total budget? Because I need to ask the administration in case I need additional budget, or case to convince them what is the best choice if I need to select the choice of using leasing agreement or rental agreement, or even to buy a refurbished one by usually refurbished by manufacturer would sometimes be a good choice in case of the budget limitation. Also, this the total amount here should be added to the medical equipment replacement plan, which we have we had talked about before. So as we can see, the largest percentage of the budget will be for the radiology department. The laboratory and the ICU have a similar budget, and the lower budget will be needed for the surgical suite. After deciding the budget item, then we go through the acquisition process. In the acquisition process, we first need to have a clear definition of the needs. Then we should make a specification in order to make a tender and send this tender to the vendors. We should have our resources to write the specification. One of the resources is the Acre Institute. Another useful resource is the MD Byline, technical bank of specification. This is a useful resource, and also it's free. So this will be a good choice also. After the writing of a specification and the tender documents and sending these documents to the vendors, we should ask the vendors for a demo, or what is known as a demonstration, to make a clinical and technical evaluation in addition to the financial evaluation. We should also ask the vendors for the reference checks, the number of the installed devices locally and internationally. Also, after making our evaluation, which is based on a clinical, technical, and financial evaluation, we can now select the vendor. After that, we will make negotiation with this selected vendor, and finally we make a purchase agreement. Here is an example how to write a specification for a medical device. This document has been taken from the technical bank of specification. As we said before, it's free. For example, this is for anesthesia machine. What are the points which we should mention in our document for specification document? First of all, a description of the function, operational requirements, system configuration, technical specification. Also, we should mention the needed accessories or spare parts or consumables, the operating environment. This is very important, especially here in Lebanon. In Lebanon, we have different standards used. For example, some hospitals have used the British standards, others have used the American one, and other hospitals have used the French standard. So it's important to mention what type of operating environment we are working on, because this will decide what type of connectors you need for the what type of electrical connectors are needed, what type of medical gases connector are needed, and so on. Another point which we should mention is the standards and safety requirements. For example, if this device should have an FDA approval or a CE mark and so on. Another point we should also mention is training for the users and as well as for the clinical engineering staff. Another point which should be mentioned in our document is the warranty period. The maintenance or service during the warranty period, the installation and commission. This is very important in case we make a new installation. In the case, for example, in the case of MRI, because this part should be negotiated with the vendor if the project is a turnkey project, which means all the civil work, electrical work, and other types of work should be made by the vendor, or some of the work should be done by the hospital team, and the rest of the work should be done by the vendor. Finally, the documentation should also be mentioned. This will include the user service manuals, quick guides, technical drawings, and other points. So this is an example how to write a specification after the selection, after the deciding what are the needs. We have a clear definition of the needs, so we should write this specification based on these needs. As we said, also we should send this document or specification documents and the tender document to the vendors. It's important to have knowledge about the available vendors for each medical device. Here we see different vendors for a clinical chemistry analyzer. For example, we have the Abou, Beckman Coulter, Medica, Mindray, Roche, Siemens Healthcare, and so on. We should also, it's very important, in addition to know the vendor for each brand, to know the service, or the what's known as after sales service, which is provided by this vendor, and we should make should include this in our evaluation. So for the laboratory department, for the chemistry, hematology, and immunology, these are the vendors or major manufacturers. For the radiology, also we have these manufacturers. For the patient monitor central station, also we have these manufacturers. For the surgical suite, also operating table, anesthesia machine, electrical safety analyzer, and so on, we have these major manufacturers. The next video will be about the management part. Thank you.